I sat bouncing in the transport truck, knees knocking against 6 other guys as we hit another rut in the road. We'd been driving for hours, and my back was killing me. Captain Marsh stood at the front, holding onto a strap hanging from the ceiling. He never sat down when he could stand. Always said it kept him sharp. "Listen up," he called over the engine noise. "I know you boys were expecting standard reconstruction work, but this mission's different." I shifted on the hard bench, trying to get comfortable. This wasn't what any of us had signed up for. The war was over. We were supposed to be helping rebuild, not heading to some mystery assignment. 2 days ago, we received word from the Japanese government about a remote village that's gone silent, Marsh continued. No radio contact, no response to messengers. They've asked for our assistance to investigate. Joseph leaned over. Why us? Why not their own people? Marsh's face stayed neutral. They requested American involvement specifically. That's all I know. That didn't sound right. The Japanese asking Americans for help this soon after surrender? I glanced at Roger across from me. He was frowning too. The village is called Takamura, Marsh said. Population about 200. It's in a valley about 20 miles from the nearest military outpost. Our job is to find out what happened and report back. That's it. What do they think happened? I asked. They didn't say, but this isn't combat and it's not reconstruction. Consider it a reconnaissance mission. I looked around at the others. We'd all been through hell together in the Pacific. Now when we should have been heading home, we were going deeper into Japan. The guy next to me, Miles Norton, was our medic. He was flipping through his kit for the 100th time, always checking and rechecking his supplies. Across from him sat Roger Rush, our radio operator, native guy from Arizona. Best ears in the unit and could work magic with the radio when everyone else got static. Next to Roger was Atlas Scott, demolitions. Big guy with hands like sledgehammers, but could disarm a bomb with the precision of a surgeon. Then there was Freddie Singh, always ready with a joke but dead serious when it counted. Joel Medina sat at the end, quiet as always, taking everything in. Joshua Johnston was next to me, scribbling notes in a small pad, and Joseph Sandoval, who never went anywhere without the small wooden cross his mother gave him. 8 of us total, including me, 9 with the captain. Not a big force if there was trouble. "Sir," I said, "what kind of supplies did you request? We packing for an overnight or something longer?" 3 days' worth, Marsh answered. "Should be more than enough. And if it's not?" He just looked at me. "Then we'll adapt, Cooper." The truck hit another bump and we all grabbed for something to hold on to. The road was getting worse, not better. We must have been heading into the mountains. "Anyone speak Japanese?" Joel asked. "I've got a basic understanding," Joshua said, "and I've been studying some of their cultural practices." "I've got a phrase book," Marsh added, "and they're expecting us, so there should be someone who can communicate." I wasn't so sure. Something about this whole thing felt wrong. We'd been fighting these people for years, and now suddenly we're helping them. I caught Roger's eye again. He gave me a slight nod. He felt it too. The truck drove on for another couple hours. The temperature dropped as we climbed higher into the mountains. The road narrowed, winding through dense forest. At some point I realized I couldn't hear anything outside except the truck engine and the crunch of tires on dirt. "You notice that?" I asked Atlas, sitting across from me. "Notice what?" "Listen, no birds." Atlas tilted his head. "Huh, you're right. No insects either, nothing." He nodded grimly. "Not natural." I leaned toward the small window at the front of the truck. The forest looked normal enough. Tall pines and thick undergrowth. But it was dead quiet. Even forests in active war zones had some life to them. This silence was wrong. "How much further, Captain?" Roger called out. "About 5 miles according to the map," Marsh answered, checking his compass. "We should see the valley soon." Joseph fingered the cross around his neck. I'd seen him do that before firefights, never a good sign. "Anyone else find it strange the Japs would ask us for help?" Freddie asked quietly. "After everything?" "Maybe they're scared," Miles suggested, "and something they can't handle themselves." "Like what?" Joel asked. Miles shrugged. "Disease, maybe? Could be why they wanted a medic." That made some sense, but it didn't explain the silence in the forest. The truck slowed as we rounded a bend, and suddenly the trees parted. Below us stretched a small valley, maybe half a mile across, surrounded by steep hills. Rice paddies terraced the lower slopes, and at the center was a cluster of traditional Japanese buildings, the village of Takamura. "There it is," Marsh said. I scanned the valley, No movement, no smoke from cooking fires, nothing that suggested people were down there. "Captain, look!" Joshua pointed to a hill above the village where a small wooden structure stood. "That's a shrine, probably Shinto from the design." The shrine seemed untouched. Even from here, I could see the red paint was still bright, not faded or damaged like most buildings we'd seen since entering Japan. "That's our first stop," Marsh decided. "We'll check the shrine, then move down to the village." My stomach knotted up. Every instinct I had was screaming that we shouldn't go down there. I'd felt something similar before ambushes during the war, a sixth sense that had kept me alive when others died. "Sir," I said, "maybe we should call this in first. Let command know what we found so far." "And what have we found, Cooper?" Marsh asked. "Nothing yet. We'll report when we have something to report." The truck began its descent into the valley, following the narrow road that switched back down the steep hillside. With each turn, the knot in my stomach tightened. Something was very wrong here. "Weapons check," Marsh ordered. "I don't anticipate trouble, but stay alert. Rush. Keep the radio ready. Norton, have your medical kit accessible." We all did as ordered, checking our sidearms and adjusting our gear. The truck rolled to a stop about 100 yards from the first building. "All right," Marsh said. "Prepare for arrival. We go in calm and orderly. Remember, we're here to help." I chambered around in my pistol anyway. The silence pressed in around us, heavy and unnatural. Captain Marsh might have thought we were there to help, but every fibre in my body was telling me we were walking into danger. We stepped into the village square and I kept my rifle ready. The place was empty, no people, no animals, but something wasn't right. "Captain," I said, keeping my voice low, "look at this place." Captain Marsh scanned the area, his eyes narrowing. "What about it, Cooper? It's too clean." I gestured around us. "No debris, no damage. If everyone left in a hurry, you'd expect some mess." He nodded slowly. "Good observation." The square had a central well, a few wooden buildings arranged in a circle, and dirt paths leading off in different directions. Everything looked normal except for the fact that there wasn't a soul in sight. No birds, no bugs, nothing. "Let's check the houses," Marsh ordered, motioning for the others to spread out. We approached the first house on the right. The door was wide open, swinging slightly in the breeze. Inside, the table was set with bowls of rice and fish, half-eaten, chopsticks laid across one bowl like someone had just stepped away for a minute. "They left in the middle of a meal," I said, pointing at the table. Marsh ran his finger across the table surface. "No dust. This can't be more than a day or two old." "Where'd they go?" I asked, though I didn't expect an answer. We moved to the next house. Same thing. Door open, belongings in place, signs of interrupted daily life, a pot of tea still on the stove, cold now, a child's toy abandoned mid-play, like everyone just vanished. "Something's really wrong here, sir," I said, feeling the hair stand up on my neck. Marsh turned to the group gathered in the street. "We're going to split up, cover more ground." He pointed to different sections of the village. Norton, Singh and Johnston take the west side, Sandoval, Scott and Medina east side. Cooper, Rush and I will take the centre and north. The guys nodded and split off in their assigned directions. I stayed with Marsh and Rush as we continued through the centre of the village. "Keep your eyes open," Marsh said. "Look for anything unusual, any signs of where these people might have gone." We checked 3 more houses. All the same story. Meals abandoned, doors open, no signs of struggle or panic, just absence. "Sir," I said, pointing to a larger building at the north end of the square. "That structure looks different, bigger." "Probably the village elder's home," Marsh said. "Let's check it out." The building stood 2 stories tall with a small porch and sliding paper doors. Unlike the other houses, this door was closed. Rush stayed outside to keep watch while Marsh and I went in. Inside, it was darker and cooler. The front room had a low table surrounded by cushions. Papers were spread across it, and an ink brush lay on its side, a dark stain pooled beneath it. "Someone was writing when they left," I said, moving closer. Marsh picked up one of the papers. "This looks like official records, probably census data." I moved deeper into the house, checking each room, a kitchen, a bedroom, then a small study in the back with shelves of scrolls and books. "Captain," I called, "in here." Marsh joined me as I was looking at a journal open on a desk. The pages were filled with Japanese characters, but as I flipped through it, something changed. The neat columns of writing gave way to strange symbols I'd never seen before. "What do you make of this?" I asked, pointing to the symbols. Marsh took the journal, his face serious as he studied the pages. He flipped back and forth, brow furrowed. "The early entries look normal," he said. "But about 2 weeks ago these symbols started appearing." He pointed to a particular character that repeated. First just 1 or 2, then more. He turned to the last few pages. They were filled with the strange markings, drawn with increasingly heavy strokes that sometimes tore through the paper. "You recognize any of this?" I asked. "Some of it," Marsh said quietly, "and not Japanese, much older." "What does that mean?" Before he could answer, Rush appeared in the doorway, his face pale. "Sir, you need to hear this," he said, holding up his radio. We followed him outside where he turned up the volume. At first I just heard static, then something else, a faint sound beneath the white noise. "Listen," Rush said. I leaned closer. There it was. Not words exactly, but something like whispers. Like dozens of voices talking all at once, too quiet to make out but definitely there. "What the hell is that?" I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. "I don't know," Rush said. "It started about 5 minutes ago, getting stronger." Marsh took the radio, adjusting the dial. The whispers remained. "Could be interference," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. "From what?" I asked. "There's nothing out here." Before anyone could answer, we heard footsteps pounding up the street. Joel Medina was running toward us, his face ghost white. He skidded to a stop, breathing hard. "Captain," he gasped, "you need to come. The Eastern Well." "What is it, soldier?" Marsh demanded. Joel swallowed hard. "We found something. Remains. A child." My stomach dropped. "A child?" "In the well?" Marsh asked, his expression darkening. Joel nodded. "Yes, sir, but it's not right. Scott says it looks like—" He struggled for words, like something was done to the body, something deliberate. Marsh's jaw tightened. "Get everyone back to the village square, now," Joel nodded and took off back the way he came. Marsh turned to us. "Rush, radio command. Tell them we've found evidence of foul play and possible ritualistic activity." Rush tried the radio again, but the whispers had grown louder. "I can't get through, sir. Too much interference." Marsh cursed under his breath. "We need to regroup and figure out our next move." As we headed back to the square, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd stepped into something much worse than an abandoned village. The clean streets, the half-eaten meals, the strange symbols, the whispers on the radio, and now a child's remains. It all added up to something I didn't want to understand. "Sir," I said quietly, "what do you think happened here?" Marsh's eyes met mine, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something that looked like fear. "I don't know yet, Cooper," he said, "but whatever it is, I think we're still in the middle of it." The sun was starting to dip toward the mountains as we all gathered back in the village square. Nobody looked good. Joseph and Joshua came from the direction of the shrine, both walking fast with their heads down. Miles had a cloth bag in his hand. Freddie and Atlas stood off to the side, not talking. Joel kept scanning the tree line like he expected something to come charging out. Captain Marsh stood in the centre, back straight as always, but I could see tension in how he held his shoulders. "Report," he said as everyone formed a loose circle around him. Joseph stepped forward first. "Sir, we found more of those symbols up at the shrine. They're carved into the foundation stones." His voice was steady, but his fingers kept worrying that wooden cross around his neck. Joshua nodded beside him. "They're not normal shrine markings, not Japanese at all. They're concentrated around the entrance, and along what appears to be the cardinal points of the structure." "We took photos," Joseph added, patting the camera hanging from his neck. "Whatever they are, somebody put a lot of work into carving them." Captain Marsh's expression tightened. "I've seen symbols like those before, in texts, ancient ones." "What kind of texts?" I asked. "Containment texts," Marsh said, "from various cultures. Symbols meant to keep something in, or out." That didn't make me feel any better. None of us said anything for a moment. The silence around the village seemed to press in closer. Roger was sitting on a stone bench at the edge of the square, fiddling with his radio equipment. I walked over to him. "Any luck?" He shook his head. "Still can't get through to command, just these damn whispers." He turned up the volume slightly and I heard it, a faint sound under the static, like multiple voices talking at once, too quiet to make out words. "Can you tell what language it is?" I asked. "That's the thing," Roger said, looking up at me. "It doesn't sound like any language I know, and I've heard plenty." I nodded and moved back toward the group. Miles had approached Captain Marsh and was holding open his cloth bag. "Found these in different houses," Miles said as I joined them. He pulled out a child's doll, a man's pipe and a woman's hairbrush. Normal, everyday things. Personal belongings left behind, but look at this. He turned the doll over. On its back, scratched into the fabric, was a symbol similar to what we'd seen in the journal. "They're everywhere once you start looking," Miles continued. "Scratched onto walls, furniture. Some look like they were done in a hurry." I picked up the pipe, turning it over in my hand. Someone had carved a small symbol into the wood. "Captain, I think we should leave before it gets dark." Marsh took the pipe from me, examining the marking. "Not yet, Cooper. We need more evidence of what happened here." He handed the pipe back to Miles. "We need to understand what we're dealing with." "With all due respect, sir," I said, keeping my voice low, "we don't have communications. We found evidence of something bad. Shouldn't we report back what we know before nightfall?" Marsh looked at me hard. "And tell them what exactly? That we found an empty village with strange carvings? We need more." I didn't like it, but I nodded. Captain's orders. "Sing," Marsh called. "You and Cooper check those storage buildings on the south side, see if they took their supplies when they left." "Yes, sir," Freddie said, nodding at me. We walked in silence toward a row of smaller buildings at the edge of the village. The sun was getting lower, casting long shadows across the empty streets. "This place gives me the creeps," Freddie said finally. "Like someone's watching us." I nodded. "I know what you mean." The first storage building had a simple wooden door that slid open easily. Inside, neatly stacked bags of rice lined one wall. Barrels that smelled of pickled vegetables stood in the corner. Dried fish hung from the ceiling. "They didn't take their food," Freddie said, surprised. "There's enough here to feed the village for months." "Nobody plans to leave their food behind," I said, moving deeper into the storage room. "Not unless they had to leave in a real hurry." We checked the other buildings. Same story. Full of supplies, tools, winter clothes. Everything a village would need to survive was still here. "Cooper, come look at this," Freddie called from outside the last building. I stepped out and found him crouched near the ground at the edge of the village, where the dirt path met the grass. "What is it?" I asked, kneeling beside him. "Not sure," he said, pointing at the dirt, "but it's all around the village." I saw it then. Faint marks in the soil, forming a pattern. They might have been footprints at first glance, but they were too regular, too deliberate. They formed a line that seemed to curve around the village perimeter. In places, the dirt looked disturbed, as if someone had tried to scuff out the markings. "It goes all the way around," Freddie said. "I noticed it when we first got here, but didn't think much of it." I stood up and followed the faint line with my eyes. It did seem to encircle the village, just at the edge where buildings stopped and the surrounding fields began. "We need to tell the captain," I said. We found Marsh still in the square, talking with Joshua about the shrine symbols. The sun was nearly touching the mountaintops now, the sky turning orange and purple. "Captain," I said, "have we found something you should see?" I led him to the spot Freddie had shown me and pointed out the markings. "They go all the way around the village, sir," I explained, "and it looks like someone tried to erase them." Marsh crouched down, studying the marks intently. After a long moment, he stood up abruptly. "Nobody touches anything else," he ordered, his voice sharper than before. "No more handling objects, no more entering buildings. We gather what we've found and prepare to leave." "Sir?" I was surprised by the sudden change. "That's an order, Cooper. Get everyone back to the square now." I nodded and turned to go, but not before I caught the look in his eyes. In all the time I'd known Captain Marsh, through firefights and ambushes and worse, I'd never seen that expression on his face before. Fear. Pure, cold fear. The darkness was falling around us, shadows stretching longer from the empty buildings. And for the first time, I was certain we weren't alone in this village. I noticed something coming down from the hills. Fog. But not normal fog. This stuff was moving too fast, rolling down the slopes like it had a mind of its own. It wasn't drifting, it was flowing. Purposeful. "Captain," I said, pointing toward the hills. Marsh followed my gaze, his face going hard. The fog swept down into the valley, racing toward us faster than anything natural should move. "Everyone stay alert," Marsh called out, his voice tight. The white wall hit the first buildings at the edge of the village and just kept coming. Within seconds, it was swallowing houses whole, erasing them from view. I'd seen fog before, plenty of times, but never anything like this. The air around us was still clear, but that wall of white was bearing down fast. Roger's radio suddenly erupted with a burst of static that made us all jump. He fumbled with it, trying to adjust the frequency, but the static just got louder. Then it changed. The static faded and something else came through, a whisper, clear as day. We never left. The voice didn't sound human. It was like several voices speaking at once, layered on top of each other. "What the hell was that?" Freddie asked, his eyes wide. Roger stared at his radio like it had turned into a snake. "I don't—" Before he could finish, the fog hit us. It was cold, much colder than the air had been just seconds before, and thick. I could barely see my hand in front of my face. "Everyone back to the truck now," Marsh ordered, his voice already sounding distant even though he'd been standing right next to me. I turned in what I thought was the right direction, but the fog was disorienting. Everything looked the same, just white in every direction. "Stay together," I heard Marsh call, but his voice was muffled. "Captain," I called back. No answer. I took a few steps forward, arms outstretched, trying to find someone, anyone. The fog seemed to press against me, thick and heavy. I could hear confused shouts from the others, but they sounded wrong somehow, like they were coming from all directions at once. "Roger? Miles?" I called out. Then I heard it, a scream that made my blood run cold. It was Joel. I recognized his voice right away. "Joel!" I shouted. "Joel, where are you?" Nothing, just silence where his scream had been. I gripped my rifle tighter, holding it ready. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I took slow steps, trying to move toward where I thought Joel's scream had come from, but it was impossible to tell direction in the fog. "Anyone?" I called again. "Marsh? Freddie? Can anybody hear me?" The silence was worse than the scream had been. I kept moving, one hand stretched out in front of me, the other keeping my rifle ready. I had no idea if I was even going in the right direction anymore. Something solid hit my outstretched hand and I nearly pulled the trigger before I realized it was a person. I felt a hand grab my arm, squeezing hard. "Cooper?" It was Miles, his voice barely above a whisper. I could just make out his face through the fog, only inches from mine. His eyes were wide with fear. "Miles," I said, relief flooding through me. "Where are the others?" He was shaking, his grip on my arm so tight it hurt. "Something's in the fog," he whispered. "Something took Atlas. I saw it. I was right next to him. And then—" He swallowed hard. "It grabbed him, just pulled him away. I couldn't even see what it was." I was about to ask him more when his eyes suddenly went wider. His mouth opened in a silent scream. "Miles!" Then he was yanked backward, so hard and fast that his fingernails scraped my arm as he was torn away from me. His scream started but cut off abruptly, like someone had slammed a door. "Miles!" I shouted, firing a shot in the direction he'd been pulled. The muzzle flash lit up the fog for a split second but showed nothing but more white. My hands were shaking now. I'd been in combat before, faced down enemies I could see, but this was something else entirely. I couldn't fight what I couldn't see. "Form up!" I heard Marsh's voice cut through the fog. "Everyone find each other! Back-to-back formation! Now!" I moved toward his voice, stumbling a bit, keeping my rifle raised. I bumped into someone and nearly took their head off before I realized it was Freddie. "Cooper?" he said, voice trembling. "Thank God." Joseph was with him, looking just as terrified. We pressed our backs together instinctively, all three of us facing outward into the white. "Where's everyone else?" Joseph asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I said. "I lost Miles. Something took him. And Joel, I heard him scream." "I can't find the captain," Freddie said. "I heard him, but I can't see him." The radio on my belt crackled, making us all jump. I'd forgotten I was carrying Roger's backup. I grabbed it, holding it to my ear. "Cooper?" It was Roger, his voice strained with fear. "Cooper, can you hear me?" "Roger, where are you?" I asked. "I don't know. I can't see anything." "But Cooper, listen. There's something in here with us, something big. I can hear it moving. It's coming. It's—" His voice cut off, replaced by a wet choking sound that made my skin crawl. Then nothing but static. I felt real terror then, the kind that makes your legs weak and your mouth go dry. Something was moving through the fog around us. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it, something massive circling us. The air seemed to get even colder, and the fog shifted and swirled, like it was being pushed aside by something solid. "Do you feel that?" Joseph whispered, his back pressing harder against mine. I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me. "Yeah," I said. "I feel it." Whatever was out there in the fog, it was getting closer. and we were running out of places to hide. I fired blindly into the fog, couldn't see a damn thing, just pulled the trigger and hoped I'd hit whatever was out there. Freddie and Joseph were doing the same thing, trying to cover all sides. "Just keep shooting," I said. Our shots echoed, then died, swallowed up by the whiteness. Couldn't tell if we were hitting anything or just wasting ammo. Then I felt Joseph jerk behind me. "What the?" he started. Then he screamed, a horrible sound. "Something's got my leg. Help! It's got my—" I spun around. Could barely make out Joseph's shape in the fog. He was on the ground, clawing at the dirt, being dragged backward by something I couldn't see. His fingers dug trenches in the soil as he tried to hold on. "Joseph!" I yelled, lunging forward, trying to grab him. But he slipped away too fast, screaming the whole time. The sound of his voice got fainter and fainter until it cut off completely. "Joseph!" Freddie broke our back-to-back formation and charged into the fog after him. "Freddie, don't!" I shouted, but he was already gone. For a second, I heard Freddie's footsteps. Then a terrified cry that made my blood freeze. Then nothing. Just like that, they were both gone. I stood alone in the fog, my heart hammering against my ribs. Sweat ran down my back despite the cold. I strained to hear anything, but there was just the sound of my own breathing, too loud in my ears. I had to move. Couldn't stay here. I backed up slowly, trying to remember which way the village entrance was. My boot hit something solid. A rock, maybe, and I almost fell. Caught myself, kept going. The fog seemed to be getting thicker, colder too. I held my rifle out in front of me, finger on the trigger, ready to fire at anything that moved. "Miles?" I called out. "Roger? Captain?" No answer, just the fog pressing in. I backed up another step and bumped into something solid, something that hadn't been there a second ago. I spun around, ready to fire, when a hand grabbed my shoulder. "Cooper!" It was Captain Marsh's voice. Relief flooded through me as his face emerged from the fog, but the feeling didn't last. His eyes were wide, his face pale. I'd never seen him look scared before. "Captain, they're gone," I said. "Joseph and Freddie, We need to run," he cut me off, his voice urgent. "Right now, we need to get out of here." "But the others? There are no others." His grip tightened on my shoulder. "The symbols, Cooper, they were barriers, ancient containment symbols. They weren't meant to keep people out, they were meant to keep something in. And we disturbed them." My mouth went dry. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying run," he shoved me forward. "Truck's this way. Move!" We sprinted through the fog. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead, but Marsh seemed to know where he was going. I followed close behind, heart pounding in my ears. Behind us something moved. I heard it. Branches snapping, heavy footsteps, something big, something fast. "It's coming!" I shouted. "Don't look back!" Marsh yelled. "Just run!" I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life. Lungs burning, legs pumping. The fog thinned a little, and I could make out shapes of buildings as we passed them. Then I felt it. Hot breath on the back of my neck. So close I could smell it like rotting meat and something else I couldn't name. Something ancient. I didn't look back. Couldn't look back. Just kept running, following Marsh through the fog. "There!" he shouted. The truck appeared in front of us, a dark shape in the whiteness. Marsh sprinted for the driver's side. I headed for the passenger door, fumbling with the handle, throwing myself inside. "Start it!" I yelled, turning to face the rear window. I couldn't see anything through the fog, but I could hear it coming closer. Marsh turned the key. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. "Cover us!" he shouted, throwing the truck into gear. I leaned out the window and fired back into the fog. 3 shots, 4, 5, no idea if I hit anything. The fog swirled and parted as if something large was moving through it. "Go! Go! Go!" I yelled. Marsh floored it. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning in the dirt before finding purchase. We shot forward, bouncing over the uneven ground. I kept firing until my clip was empty, then pulled myself back inside, slamming the door shut. "Don't stop," I said, breathing hard. "Whatever you do, don't stop." Marsh didn't answer. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel as we careened down the mountain road. The truck skidded around corners, almost going off the edge more than once. I kept looking back, expecting to see something following us. But there was just fog, growing fainter as we put distance between us and the village. "The others," I said finally. "Miles, Roger, Joel, Atlas, Joshua, they're all—" "Gone," Marsh finished, his voice hollow. "They're all gone." We drove in silence after that, Down the mountain, through the forests, past rice fields. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? The sun was coming up by the time we reached the American outpost. Pink light crept over the horizon, pushing back the darkness. The truck slowed as we approached the checkpoint, but Marsh didn't stop until we were well inside the perimeter. He killed the engine, and we just sat there. I looked over at him. The morning light showed what the darkness had hidden. His face was scratched, blood dried on his cheek. His uniform was torn, and his hands, still gripping the steering wheel, were shaking. I looked down at my own hands. They were shaking too. I woke up in a military hospital bed. White walls, that antiseptic smell, and the constant beeping of machines. My body felt like one giant bruise. 2 officers stood at the foot of my bed, Major Reynolds and some lieutenant I didn't recognize. They had clipboards and serious faces. "Sergeant Cooper," Major Reynolds said, "we need your statement about what happened at Takamura." I tried to sit up straighter. "Sir, something attacked us in the fog. It took the others. Only Captain Marsh and I made it out." The lieutenant wrote something down. Reynolds shook his head. "No, Sergeant. There was a landslide that destroyed the village. That's what our report shows." I stared at him. "A landslide? That's not what happened." "That's what the official record will show," Reynolds said, his voice flat. "Natural disaster. No survivors except you and Captain Marsh." "But, sir, there was something in that fog. It took Joseph first, then Freddie. I heard them screaming." The lieutenant stopped writing and glanced at Reynolds, who sighed. "Sergeant Cooper, you suffered a head injury. Trauma can cause confusion and false memories." "My memories aren't false," I said, feeling my heart rate pick up. "Ask Captain Marsh. He knows what happened." Reynolds placed a document on the tray table in front of me. "This is the official report. You need to sign it." I read through it. The report claimed we found the village destroyed by a recent landslide, and while investigating, another slide occurred, killing the team except for Marsh and me. It was complete bullshit. "I'm not signing this," I said, pushing the papers away. Reynolds leaned in close. "Let me make this clear, Sergeant. You either sign this report or you'll face court-martial for disobeying a direct order. Your choice." "On what grounds?" I asked. "Classified mission parameters, national security concerns. Take your pick." Reynolds tapped the paper. "Sign it." I looked at the lieutenant, who suddenly found the floor very interesting. My hands shook as I picked up the pen. I thought about the guys, Miles, Roger, Joel, Atlas, Joseph, Freddie, Joshua, all gone. And here these officers were, erasing them with paperwork. I signed it. What choice did I have? "Good," Reynolds said, taking the papers. "You'll be debriefed further tomorrow. Get some rest." They left, and I lay back, staring at the ceiling. What the hell had happened in that village? And why was the military covering it up? 3 days passed. I got stronger, but the nightmares didn't stop. I kept hearing Joseph's screams as he was dragged away. I'd wake up in cold sweats, thinking the fog was coming for me next. It was late evening when Captain Marsh showed up. I almost didn't recognize him. His uniform was wrinkled, his face unshaven. Dark circles hung under his eyes, and he kept glancing over his shoulder. "Sir," I said, trying to sit up. "At ease, Cooper." He closed the door and pulled a chair next to my bed. "How are you holding up?" "Better than you by the looks of it." He didn't smile. "Did they make you sign the report?" I nodded. "Landslide. What a load of crap." "I know," he rubbed his eyes. "I signed the same thing, but I need to tell you something important. What we unleashed in that village, it won't stay contained." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" "That thing in the fog. I've been researching it since we got back." He lowered his voice. "The symbols we found, they weren't just random markings. They were binding spells, centuries old. Binding spells. The village was a prison, Cooper. Those symbols were keeping something trapped, something that's been feeding on that village for centuries, and now it's free." I felt sick. "What is it?" "I don't know exactly, but I found references in ancient texts, entities that consume not just bodies but souls. They grow stronger with each victim." He leaned forward. "Think about it. No bodies in the village, no signs of violence, just gone." "Jesus," I whispered. "And the military knows." "Some do, higher-ups, but they're suppressing everything." "Why?" "What would you do if you found out something like this exists? Something that can't be shot or bombed? Something that might not even be from this world?" He shook his head. Panic, mass hysteria, or worse, someone might try to use it as a weapon. I thought about the fog, how it moved with purpose. What can we do? Marsh just shook his head. I don't know yet. I'm gathering information, but it's not easy. Most of the texts are restricted or scattered in private collections. He glanced toward the window and I followed his gaze. Fog had gathered against the glass, thicker than it should have been for this time of year. Marsh stood abruptly. I have to go. I'll come back when I know more. He reached the door, then turned. Be careful who you talk to, Cooper. Trust no one. Captain, I called as he opened the door. Do you think it followed us? He didn't answer, just gave me one last troubled look before disappearing into the hallway. A week passed. No sign of Captain Marsh. My physical condition improved enough that they moved me to outpatient status. I asked about the captain every day, but nobody would give me a straight answer. Then Colonel Davis visited me. He was one of those military types who looked like he was born in uniform. Sergeant Cooper, he said, standing at parade rest beside my bed. I wanted to inform you personally that Captain Aidan Marsh has been transferred. Transferred where, sir? That information is classified. The captain's new assignment requires complete operational security. When will he be back? He won't be, Davis said flatly. His transfer is permanent. I felt cold all over. Sir, did he leave any message for me? No, Sergeant. He was deployed immediately. I knew it was bullshit. Marsh wouldn't leave without saying something, not after our last conversation. But I couldn't say that to Davis. Yes, sir. Thank you for letting me know. Davis nodded. You're receiving an honourable discharge, Cooper, with a commendation. Commendation? For your part in the rescue operation? Rescue operation, I repeated. There was nothing to rescue in that village, just ghosts and fog and something hungry. You should be proud, Davis said, not meeting my eyes. Your service record will reflect exemplary conduct under extreme conditions. 2 days later, I had my discharge papers. Honourable discharge with a commendation for extraordinary courage during disaster relief operations. The military was burying the truth along with the memory of my friends. No mention of what really happened. No acknowledgement of what might still be out there. I signed the final papers, shook the hands I was supposed to shake, and walked out into the sunlight. But I kept glancing over my shoulder, watching for fog. I jerked awake to a familiar sound. My radio, the one I kept on the dresser across the room, was crackling with static, but under it I heard whispers, the same whispers I hadn't heard in almost 60 years. The red numbers on my bedside clock read 2 and 17. I pushed myself up, joints complaining. My mouth went dry as the whispers got louder. Not words exactly, not any language I recognized, but I'd heard them before, in a village that officially never existed. I reached for the drawer in my nightstand and pulled out my service pistol. Kept it loaded all these years. People would call me paranoid. They didn't know what I knew. The whispers rose and fell like breathing. I shuffled to the window, pistol gripped tight in my hand. Pulled back the curtain just enough to see outside. Fog. Not normal fog. It rolled across my front yard like it had a mind of its own. Too thick. Too purposeful. It curled around my maple tree, probing, searching. I'd seen fog like that before, in Takamura. My hands started to shake. Not from age. From knowing what was out there. The whispers from the radio matched exactly what Roger's radio had picked up that day. Right before everything went to hell. Right before we lost everyone but me and the captain. Something heavy moved on my porch. A dragging sound like something big pulling itself forward. Then a thump against my front door. My phone rang. I nearly dropped my gun. The screen lit up the dark room, showing unknown number. I hesitated, then picked it up. Hello? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Cooper? Cooper, is that you? The voice was frantic, breathless, but I recognized it immediately. Captain Marsh? Thank God. Listen to me, Cooper. It found me. Been tracking us down one by one. I'm the last besides you. His voice dropped lower. It's been feeding, Cooper, growing stronger. I moved to my bedroom door, keeping the pistol ready. Where are you, Captain? Outside your house, please, I need help. It's coming for me. My heart hammered in my chest. You're outside? Right now? Yes, for God's sake, let me in before it gets here. Something scratched at my front door. Long, deliberate strokes. I'll be right there, I said, not sure if I meant it. I hung up and stood there for a second. Marsh showing up after all these years, the same night the fog appears? Something wasn't right. I moved down the hallway toward the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight. The scratching at the door stopped when I reached the top of the stairs. It knew I was coming. I took the steps one at a time, pistol pointed down but ready. The whispers from upstairs got louder, even though I was moving away from the radio, like they were following me. At the bottom of the stairs I paused. The front door was 10 feet away, no windows next to it. No way to see who or what was outside without opening it. "Captain?" I called out. "You still there?" No answer, just more scratching. I moved to the door, staying to the side. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Everything in me screamed to turn around to run back upstairs. But where would I go? If it was here for me, there was no escape. I turned the knob and pulled the door open. It wasn't Marsh. The fog on my porch swirled and gathered itself into a shape. Almost human, but too tall, too wrong. No real features, just a suggestion of a face in the churning mist. 2 darker spots where eyes might be. It had no mouth, but I heard the whispers coming from it. "You're not Marsh," I said, like it mattered. A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" "That thing in the fog. I've been researching it since we got back." He lowered his voice. "The symbols we found, they weren't just random markings. They were binding spells, centuries old. Binding spells. The village was a prison, Cooper. Those symbols were keeping something trapped, something that's been feeding on that village for centuries, and now it's free." I felt sick. "What is it?" "I don't know exactly, but I've found references in ancient texts, entities that consume not just bodies but souls. They grow stronger with each victim." He leaned forward. "Think about it. No bodies in the village, no signs of violence, just gone." "Jesus," I whispered. "And the military knows." "Some do, higher-ups, but they're suppressing everything." "Why?" "What would you do if you found out something like this exists? Something that can't be shot or bombed? Something that might not even be from this world?" He shook his head. "Panic, mass hysteria, or worse, someone might try to use it as a weapon." The fog thing filled the doorway now, taller than before. Hungry. The whispers turned into a low growl. I started reading. Words no human throat was meant to form. My tongue stumbled over the sounds, but I kept going. Had to get it right. The thing shrieked. The sound cut through me like a physical pain. It lunged forward. I kept reading, louder now. The words felt hot in my mouth. The air around me seemed to thicken, like the words themselves had weight. The fog creature stopped, writhed. Its form lost cohesion, the swirling patterns growing chaotic. It shrieked again, higher pitched this time, almost desperate. I finished the incantation, the final words burning my throat. The thing collapsed in on itself, compressing down to a fraction of its size. Still fog, still moving, but contained by the words, trapped by them. I dropped the journal and moved fast. Under my desk was a metal box I'd prepared years ago, inscribed with the same symbols I'd just read. I'd hoped I'd never need it. I grabbed the box and flipped the lid open. The diminished entity tried to flee, sensing the trap, but it was weakened, confused. I swiped the box through the air, catching most of the swirling mass inside. What remained tried to scatter, but I chased it down, sweeping it into the box like dust into a pan. When I had it all, I slammed the lid shut. The thing inside beat against the metal, making it vibrate in my hands. I fumbled with the latches, securing them one by one. With each latch, the beating grew weaker. I placed my palm on the lid and recited the final symbol, the one I'd memorized decades ago, the one that would seal the prison. The box went still. I sat back against the wall, the box clutched to my chest, breathing hard. It was over, for now. I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise. My hands were still a little shaky from last night. The metal box sat next to me, wrapped in a towel. I hadn't slept after what happened. Just waited for morning. Around 7:30, I heard engines coming up the road. 3 black SUVs and a larger truck with government plates pulled into my driveway. Men in suits got out first, scanning the area. Then a tall woman in an army uniform stepped out of the middle vehicle. Colonel Harris. I hadn't seen her in 15 years, but she'd been a lieutenant when I saved her unit during a flood in '85. Sometimes debts get paid. I stood up as she walked toward the porch. Mr. Cooper, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for calling. Thanks for coming, Colonel, I shook her hand. Didn't know if you'd remember me. Hard to forget the man who pulled me out of rising water. She glanced at the wrapped box. Is that it? I nodded. Be careful with it. It's not natural. She signalled to the truck and 4 people in white hazmat suits climbed out, carrying equipment. They approached cautiously, like they were dealing with a bomb. You said on the phone it was contained but dangerous, Colonel Harris said. Want to tell me what we're dealing with? I picked up the box carefully. It's something old, something that hunts people. I kept my voice steady. It's trapped for now, but the binding might not hold forever. What is it exactly? She asked. I don't know its name. Don't think it has one. It's like fog, but with a mind. It takes people. I didn't mention Takamura. That village never existed according to official records. One of the hazmat team stepped forward with some kind of scanner. Sir, we need to check the container before transport. I handed him the box. Don't open it, no matter what you hear. The man nodded and took readings from all sides. He whispered something to the colonel, who frowned. The readings are unusual, she said. We've got a secure facility prepared, special containment division. Good. I watched as they brought forward a lead-lined case with strange symbols etched into it. They placed my box inside carefully, securing it with heavy latches. We detected unusual energy signatures, the hazmat lead told me, similar to ones we've encountered before. That got my attention. You've seen something like this before? Colonel Harris gave the technician a sharp look. That's classified information, Mr. Cooper. So they knew. The military had known all along what we found in that village. Captain Marsh had been right. We'd like to offer you relocation, Colonel Harris said. For your safety. We have a secure facility. No, I cut her off. I'm 78 years old. Too old to start over somewhere new. There could be others, she warned. If one found you, I'll take my chances. I looked her straight in the eyes. I've been looking over my shoulder for 57 years. Don't think I'll stop now. She nodded slowly. We'll have a team monitor the area for the next few weeks, just to be safe. The hazmat team loaded the container into the truck. I watched them secure it with heavy straps. Will it hold? I asked. The facility was designed for containment of unusual threats, Colonel Harris said. It's as secure as we can make it. Good. I felt tired suddenly. Decades of looking over my shoulder catching up to me. Colonel Harris handed me a card with a number written on it. If you see anything, fog, strange lights, hear whispers, call this number immediately, day or night. I took the card. So you do know what it is? She didn't answer directly. We've encountered similar phenomena, that's all I can say. I nodded. 57 years of government denials, and now this admission. Not much, but something. Thank you for your service, Mr. Cooper, she said formally, both then and now. She turned and walked back to her vehicle. The convoy started up, turned around in my driveway and pulled away. I stood watching until they disappeared down the road. Inside, I went straight to my study. The room was a mess from last night's struggle. Broken lamp, papers everywhere, door hanging off its hinges. I gathered up the journal I'd taken from Takamura and all my translation notes. 57 years of work trying to understand what happened to us. I took everything to the fireplace in the living room, placed it all in a metal trash can, struck a match and watched it catch. The pages curled and blackened, all those symbols and warnings going up in smoke. The journal had served its purpose. It helped me trap the thing that had hunted me all these years, the thing that took my friends. The pages burned down to ash, and I stirred them with a poker to make sure nothing remained. When it was done, I sat in my old armchair, looking at the phone. There was one more thing to do. I'd tracked down Marsh's daughter years ago, but never had the courage to call her. What would I say? That her father disappeared hunting monsters the government pretended didn't exist? I picked up the phone and dialed the number I'd memorized. A woman answered on the third ring. Hello? Is this Sarah Marsh? My voice sounded rough. Yes. Who's calling? She sounded cautious. My name is Derek Cooper. I served with your father in Japan after the war. Silence for a moment. My father disappeared when I was 12. I know. I was the last person to see him. I took a deep breath. He was trying to warn people about something dangerous, something we found overseas. What are you talking about? Her voice hardened. The army said he was transferred. That wasn't true. I rubbed my forehead. Your father was a brave man. His warnings saved lives. My life for one. And today, maybe many more. Why are you telling me this now? It's been over 50 years. Because today I finally did something about it. And I thought you should know your father didn't just abandon you. He was protecting people. Protecting you. She was quiet for a long time. Did he suffer? I don't know, I answered honestly. But he was doing what he believed was right. Another long pause. Thank you for calling, Mr. Cooper. Your father was a good man, I said. I wanted someone to know that. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair. My house felt different. Lighter somehow. For 57 years, I'd lived with the weight of Takamura. The guilt of surviving when the others didn't. The fear of what followed us back. I looked at my service pistol on the side table. For the first time in decades, I put it away in the drawer. Just for tonight, I wouldn't sleep with it under my pillow. The thing that had hunted me was gone. There might be others out there, but this one would never hunt again. I closed my eyes, feeling a weight lift slightly from my shoulders. Just for tonight, I'd sleep without looking over my shoulder.